G'day peeps, welcome back to another episode of What the Fact Friday. You heard right, what the fact. Today's fact is sourdough is the better bread to eat. Got you thinking? Let's see how we go. Now, what is sourdough? Sourdough is a bread that's made up of water and flour that's been fermented using a starter or a live culture of lactic acid bacteria and yeast. What this does is it changes the acidic level of the bread and brings it down to a pH of 4.5 or less. So it makes it a little bit more acidic. Now, what it does is it changes the flavor of the bread. It puts a little bit of a tang to the bread as well. It also changes the texture as well of the bread. So when you eat it, it's got a little bit of a different palate, let's say. You'll feel it in the bread itself. I know my mum and dad, when they went from the white Vienna slice they used to buy to sourdough, they noticed the bread tastes a little bit different. So yeah, they definitely picked that up on that. The other thing too, what it does is it changes the nutritional content of the bread as comparing it to, let's say, your supermarket bread, the commercially produced ultra-processed crap that you buy in a packet, right? So it changes the nutritional content. One of the things that we'd find is that within wheat flour, we have a thing known as fructooligosaccharides. And what happens is when we ferment the bread, it reduces this FODMAP response. So if you've got any intestinal response like discomfort or gas, all that sort of stuff, or you've got IBS even, especially when you eat some bread, what will happen is the sourdough will reduce this effect. Now, with some people, it will still cause a discomfort. Other people will find that it can completely alleviate it. So that's an interesting thing to know. The other thing too with sourdough is that the GI level, the glycemic index level, which is an indicator of how high your blood sugar levels respond, with sourdough bread, it's actually lower. It's around about the 50-55 mark, whereas commercial white bread is in the 70-75 mark. So if you're worried about your blood sugar response, this may help you out a little bit. It'll drop it down just a little bit more. There's a lot involved with glycemic indexing and the way it's calculated, but at least it's something there, something to think about if you're eating bread completely on its own. The other thing too with sourdough bread is that there is an increase in prebiotic and probiotics in the bread itself when it's fermented. What you need to know is, and this is where I've seen some people get caught out, when we actually bake the bread, the amount of probiotic food is actually reduced. Those little lovely bacteria are just smashed away and being killed, but the prebiotic concept of all the bacteria is still there. It's still live and acting as a good culture to help out with gut health, etc. The other thing too that we find is that the fermentation process reduces the amount of phytate in the bread. Now, phytates act as a blocker or that prevents the absorption of certain minerals such as zinc and calcium. So, if you're eating a lot of foods with a lot of phytates, we found that it can cause a problem with this. So sourdough bread, well, it's been fermented. It reduces the phytates, which means you can actually absorb these through there. So, when we start to look at all of this sort of stuff, we're starting to see there's some bigger benefits with sourdough bread as compared to what you buy. Another thing too with sourdough is when it's fermented, it releases a thing called acetate, and that acts as a natural preservative to the bread. So therefore, the bread will last longer on the shelf. It'll just stay there and it won't go off. It won't mold. It won't get any crap. Whereas with the commercially processed bread, what you'll find is that there's a lot of emulsifiers, sweeteners, artificial colors and flavoring, all the crap they put in there to try and make it last longer, and also use a preservative known as propionic acid. Now, propionic acid, let me see, it's actually hidden sometimes and written as calcium propionate. Now, propionic acid is a normal, let's say, fruit preservative that we use here in Australia. That's not a problem at all, it hasn't been banned. But when we do testing on propionic acid on individuals to see what the response is, what we find is that it increases the release of glucagon in the body, which means your blood sugar levels are going to come up, but it also affects noradrenaline and adrenaline in your body. So your nervous system is going to get charged up, right? Heart and brain. So when we're aware of this, we go, well, here we go, we've got a bit of a problem here. But let's look at it this way. And I've always said this, the dosage is what controls the poison effect on the body. Now, when we look at the testing that they did, they looked at, I think it was 1,500 micrograms of propionic acid. 1,500, that's right. 1,500 micrograms of propionic acid to see the response it had on the humans, and it did cause these issues, right? But when we look at propionic acid in a loaf of bread, to get that dosage, it's about 3/4 of a loaf of bread, depending who makes it, who manufactures it, etc. Usually in a full loaf of bread, there's about 2,000 micrograms of propionic acid. Someone like me who doesn't like to have chemicals and crap in my food and tries to go back to eating the way we were 200 years ago, and remember, fermented bread, sourdough's been done for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. I prefer to remove all these things out. So, a little bit of toxin here, a little bit of artificial colours there. And, when we've done human trials and studies, we see that don't really affect the person. But for me as an individual, I prefer to cut all this crap out. So if I have a choice of bread, for me, it would be sourdough, 100%. And I've got a great baker up the road here. And to give you an idea, you have to actually put an order in on a Thursday or Friday because he gets sold out so quick, because then he starts the process on Saturday, does the baking on Sunday, and you have to pick it up Monday morning. And honestly, when you taste that bread, you'll notice the difference. And like I said, you can leave it on the bench there and it's not going to go off. So that's it for today. That's it. What the Fact Friday. And yes, big tick of approval by N90. Sourdough bread is fine if you want to eat bread. Enjoy, keep smiling, and remember, I'll be back next week.